Well, before we go, we want to introduce you to the newest member of the Fox and Friends family, head writer Alex Butler, and his beautiful wife, Jessica, welcoming a baby boy.
That's right. Remy James Butler, born Friday night, weighing in at 6 pounds, 12 ounces. We're told he's already an awesome eater and a good sleeper. My favorite activities.
Great.
Mom and child doing great.
Yes.
Cool
and congrats to Abby Hutzman, by the way. She and her husband having a baby girl doing Thanksgiving.
That's right around Thanksgiving. Fox and Friends starts right now. We'll see you later.
Bye.
The fact is, London is falling.
A van slamming into a crowd of people near a mosque in northern London.
At least one person dead, nearly a dozen others injured.
This is an anti-Muslim extremist that thinks he's some type of hero. He actually was essentially donating to ISIS.
We can't let this rip us apart. We can't let our rule of law turn into sort of an eye for an eye.
For the fourth time in 4 days, President Trump is calling the investigation a witch hunt.
There's been no notification of any investigation. Nothing's changed since James Comey said the president was not a target or a subject of investigation. Nothing's changed.
A U.S. fighter jet shooting down a Syrian warplane. The U.S. military says the action was taken after the pro-Assad military jet dropped bombs.
Congress trying to get some work done ahead of the 4th of July recess.
Unless the Senate changes the way in which they operate, I'm afraid you're going to continue to see this kind of deadlock.
This for the U.S. Open. Koepka, a major champion.
We start this Monday morning with a Fox News alert. Another deadly attack rocking London overnight.
So far, we have one person dead, 10 others injured after police say a man, filled with rage, used a van to mow down worshipers, leaving a mosque.
The man, 48 years old, he's the suspect. He's now in custody. Authorities are now hunting for possible accomplices. Benjamin Hall is live there on the scene in London with breaking details at this hour. Good morning to you, Benjamin. What's the latest?
Good morning, Brian. Stephen Ainsley. You know, it's attack after attack here at the moment. And, of course, we've seen this vehicle-borne kind of attack being used numerous times. But, of course, what stands this one out today is that it was an attack on Muslims. The police are treating it as a terrorist crime, and it's being investigated by the counter-terrorism unit here. The attack happened just after midnight near a Muslim centre in North London in Finchley, killing one man, as you say, and injuring 10 others. It happened at a time when the neighbourhood was crowded with Muslims finishing Ramadan prayers. Muslim leaders here are calling it a hate crime, and they're asking the public to stay calm. They do not want division being created in the community. But the stories that you hear are horrific. Bodies again strewn across the road and desperate attempts to treat the wounded soon afterwards. Police have arrested the driver. He's a 48-year-old white man. He was grappled to the ground by two bystanders till the police could arrive. The two men are being called heroes, and eyewitnesses have reported that they heard him say, "I've done my bit and I want to kill Muslims."
As we came outside the mosque, there was people screaming. It was like chaos. It was like a horror movie. There was people laying on the floor. There was blood on the floor, and people were scared. They didn't know what to do.
People really, though, here just trying to lower tensions. Already some people have been calling this a possible revenge attack in a city that has seen so many other attacks in recent months. And, of course, people coming out and saying that this may have been an attack on the Muslim community, but it is being seen as an attack on everybody, on all here. And we're waiting to get more details about the attacker himself. We only have his age so far, but what his motive is, seems to be relatively clear right now. Back to you guys.
Hey, Benjamin, quick question. What about those other two people rumored to be in the car that evidently got away?
Yeah, eyewitnesses said that at the beginning, and there was initially a hunt for other suspects, but that appears to have changed. The police coming out and said that they are no longer hunting for anyone else at the moment. So that appears to be over. They have the suspect in custody.
And Benjamin, just a point of clarification. Early they were talking about how it was terror. They were investigating it as terror, and you just said hate crime. So is that where we are right now?
Yeah, look, of course it depends who you speak to. I mean, the government have said that this, and the police are saying that this is a terrorist act, but of course community leaders calling it a hate crime. It's worth pointing out, we're just hearing that the one man who died may actually have been receiving treatment for another ailment when the van attacked. So whether or not he died of his injuries from something else, we're not sure, but we're just hearing that as well. But death toll is currently at 1, and we're waiting to see if that was connected and in what way.
Benjamin, I read an article that police did confirm that the man who collapsed at the bus stop collapsed for a medical condition. Whether or not maybe he had a heart attack because he watched what was happening and was fearful, but we'll find out that information as the day progresses. Thank you so much for that report.
And Benjamin Hall, of course, thanks, Benjamin. First time we see Benjamin Hall, he's doing work in Syria, and he's talking about ISIS and the rise of ISIS. And you go to London to think it's going to be a more civilized area, and what has he witnessed? 3 attacks now in London, one, of course, in Manchester, and that brutal fire, that horrific fire that took place less than a week ago.
Our death toll is now up to 97, we learned this morning.
It's incredible.
Also, what was interesting with this attack, the most recent attack in London that happened overnight, there was some video of the guy, the suspect. They put him in the back of the police van, and people were outside the police van, that white van, yelling murderer. And he looks at the crowd and blows them a kiss.
Right, and as we just heard Benjamin say, apparently he said, I'm going to kill all the Muslims. And according to the Telegraph this morning, after he was arrested, he said, I did the job. I did my bit. He has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder.
All right. Meanwhile, 5 minutes after the top of the hour, one of the big stories really since President Trump got elected is Russia, collusion, what they do in our election. The last part I'm interested in, what they do to our election. In terms of collusion, that's going by the boards. The more you talk to people, the more you talk to people who, as anti-Trump can be, there doesn't seem to be any there after 7 months of an investigation. But the big story last week was the Washington Post report, where they had 5 unnamed sources that say that Robert Mueller's investigation has turned to obstruction of justice. Right. Jay Sekulow seeming to lead now, in many respects, the Trump team push back on that.
That's right. Well, and President Trump did send out a tweet on Friday, and it said, I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director, witch hunt. So the top of that tweet, he said, I am being investigated. Jay Sekulow was on with Chris Wallace yesterday on one of the Sunday shows.
He was on all the shows.
Yeah, he was. But
He'll be on this one today.
He was on Chris Wallace, and Chris asked him, he said, the president tweeted that I'm under investigation. Is that true? Is he under investigation? And listen to what the president's attorney, Jay Sekulow, had to say.
The president has not been notified by anyone that he's under investigation. That tweet, Chris, was in response to the Washington Post story that alleged that 5 unnamed sources, anonymous sources, leaked to the Washington Post that the president was, in fact, under investigation. So that tweet was in response to that. There's been no notification of any investigation. Nothing's changed since James Comey said the president was not a target or a subject of investigation. Nothing's changed.
That's right. And Jay also said people citing President Trump's tweets are reading more into it than what is there. What's interesting then, on one of the other morning shows yesterday over on ABC, the senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas said, look, despite what you have heard in the Washington Post, apparently Mr. Mueller, the special counsel, has not decided whether or not to go for obstruction of justice. What he did report was the same thing that the Washington Post said last week, that Mr. Mueller has expanded to include some interviews with some senior Trump administration officials to talk about their contact with the president. And ABC says that is true. He's going to meet with those people. But Mr. Mueller has not yet decided whether or not to go after obstruction of justice, which when you connect the thing that the Assistant Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said last week, where he said late on Thursday night, he said, don't believe everything you read in the papers. You connect that with this, you know what? It looks like maybe Mr. Mueller has not decided to go with obstruction of justice yet with the President of the United States.
But as Newt Gingrich pointed out, the team that Robert Mueller's put together has many people concerned. He's got this great reputation in war as well as with criminal justice as well as in the FBI. However, the team that he put together seems to be hunting for bear. And you get concerned if this thing's going to be talking about obstruction of justice, the Trump Corporation, how big can this get? And then you have everybody lawyering up, including the vice president now. So it just seems to be a huge distraction rather than a focus on Russia.
Right. Mueller's team includes some attorneys who gave money to President Obama, who gave money to Hillary Clinton while she was running, and who worked with the Clinton Foundation on that case as well.
Sure. And the president himself has a great team as well. Jay Sekulow is part of it. He's going to join us at 8:15 this morning. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. We told you last week, to the horror of many, that the Free Theater that puts on Shakespeare in the Park at Central Park. They were doing Julius Caesar, and instead of the traditional Julius Caesar, they had a Donald Trump lookalike who would be assassinated at the end. Well, I think it was on Friday, there was a woman by the name of Laura Loomer who raced to the stage and disrupted it. She was arrested. And last night at the final show, more arrests.
It happened again. You had someone who stormed the stage yelling, "Liberal hate kills." You can see it there. He's being arrested.
I don't think it was right when the cast was yelling at Mike Pence. I don't think it's right when you see a lot of these guys screaming at Republicans. Just let them do Shakespeare in the Park. Do your display outside the actual play itself, and don't interrupt the play. A lot of these men and women just got the job. They're out there performing. This is the script they got. I don't think you should take a play from these disruptors' playbook.
Do you have a problem with them changing Julius Caesar, a classic of Shakespeare?
You know what? I don't think it's right for the audience to rush the stage. I don't think it's right to scream out in the middle of this your displeasure with whichever in that cast.
Well, I mean, Delta Airlines was so horrified they pulled their funding. Bank of America pulled their funding. American Express reportedly pulled their funding from that show, but still funds the theater because they felt that it was inappropriate to show the President of the United States being assassinated.
I think we're all curious to find out what you think. So send us your comments, and we'll read them throughout the show. In the meantime, we're going to hand it over to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Good morning.
Good Monday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's begin with a Fox News alert right now. All 7 sailors killed on a Navy destroyer have been identified. Most of the crew was sleeping when the USS Fitzgerald collided with a cargo ship near Japan Saturday night. The sailors were found dead in flooded compartments. Still no word on what caused that collision. And we have another Fox News alert right now. A U.S. fighter jet shooting down a Syrian warplane. The U.S. military says it happened after the pro-Assad military jet dropped bombs on U.S.-backed fighters near the city of Raqqa. It's the first time the U.S. military has shot down a Syrian aircraft since the U.S. began fighting ISIS in the country in 2014. The move could bring more tension between the U.S. and Russia, which backs the Syrian regime. All eyes on Georgia for a heated race for a seat in the House. Republican Karen Handel and Democrat Jon Ossoff heading into the final day of campaigning today. They're battling to fill the seat left vacant by now Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price. Democrats have raised a record $23 million for the race, calling it a referendum on President Trump. And take a look at this, some new additions to the second family. Vice President Mike Pence welcoming a new kitten and puppy over the weekend. This as their new cat, Hazen, as you can see right there. Their former cat, Oreo, passed away earlier this month. The Vice President was also surprised with a puppy named Harley for Father's Day. Both new pets are from their home state of Indiana. The Pence family also has a cat named Pickles and a bunny named Marlon Bundo. So some new additions to the family and adorable photos, as you can see. Love that.
Very
cute.
They
love their animals. I know, and I love it.
And it's great, too, that you have a staff to help us out with it, right? Especially during that early puppy stage.
So true.
Yeah.
That is true. The puppy training, I've tried it on those sheets. It's so impossible to do. So if you have any tips, let us know. Yes, because in the city...
Don't do that. It's the wrong message. Don't tell the animal to go in the house.
It's because I'm lazy. I don't want to take them down in the cold, down to the cement.
Can you lower them? Can you lower them like
with a
dumbwaiter? Yeah.
I'll try that. I'll try that. We'll see. I won't be here. I'll be like in jail.
Little harness.
All right. Meanwhile, congratulations to the Pence family. They've got new pets. Meanwhile, today marks 150 days in office for President Donald Trump. But while he's excelled at his agenda, has Congress gotten anything done? What are they up to? Governor Mike Huckabee next with who's really at fault for holding back the Trump agenda.
We'll promise he'll talk soon. And some president gets monuments, some president get airports. But what national landmark is deserving of President Obama's name? Could it be the city-county building in Madison, Wisconsin?
A Fox News alert, at least one person killed, nearly a dozen more injured when a van slams into worshipers outside of a mosque in London. Here to react to this is Fox News contributor and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, thanks for being with us. What was your reaction to this that happened overnight?
Well, you know, London just can't seem to catch a break, and what a tragedy. But it's also a great reminder that there are a lot of good Muslim people in the world. The fact that they did not just take this guy apart and instead held him for the police is, frankly, a great, I think, picture of restraint, because I think it would be hard for them to see this kind of horrific attack and not want to just say, when the police come to get him, he'll be in a body bag. And so, you know, credit to them for withholding their rage against his hateful rage and making this at least not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
It's just a horror for the people of London and the world.
It really is. All right, Governor, we wanted to also bring you on because over the weekend we got so many emails from our amazing viewers, and they were talking about how the president, they were looking, you know, today is his 150th day in office. They were talking about giving him credit for his record level stock market, the unemployment's the lowest in over 10 years. They were talking about his wonderful, successful foreign trip, the Paris Agreement, freeing Otto Warmbier and bringing him home, and also his Supreme Court appointee. But they were upset with Congress, and they were saying, where is their list? What do you think about that? Do you think Congress is doing a good job?
No, they really have not measured up to the president's performance. They haven't passed a budget. They haven't done the repeal and replace Obamacare. They promised this for 7 years. And they failed to fund the border wall. They've not done anything to help this president implement the policy of getting taxes lower and reforming the tax code. And so the president, I think, has been a remarkable president. And look, is he perfect? Of course not. There are even some things that I could disagree with him on. But let me tell you what I feel like America needs to say to Donald Trump. It's very simple. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for keeping your promises. Thank you for creating a new environment with our foreign friends across the world, and frankly, making some new friends who, before you took office, Mr. President, were our enemies. Thank you for helping to bridge a whole new world between the Chinese and the Arabs of the Gulf states. Thank you for repudiating regulations. Thank you for creating an environment where the stock market is sky high. So, Ainsley, let me just say that Donald Trump is kind of like a doctor who has sometimes a rather gruff bedside manner. Nobody's going to argue that point. He can be crude and he can come across, you know, sometimes less than people think. But by golly, the patient is alive. And I'd rather have this president who gets things done than one who comes in, he's nice and he's polite and he smiles, but my family member dies in the hospital bed. America needs to say 2 words to Donald Trump. Thank you.
Governor Huckabee, thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you. Congressman Steve Scalise still recovering in the hospital, but that's not stopping Democrats from tweeting about hunting.
Hi, everybody. I'm on the stairs. Don't try to follow me. Here are a few headlines I want to share with you. North Korea is at it again. This time branding the U.S. a lawless and felonious state. Erratic dictator Kim Jong-un says his diplomats were quite literally mugged by police at New York's JFK airport. The communist country now demanding the U.S. apologize or face grave consequences. They also want us to move the UN. And Iran firing a barrage of missiles to get revenge on ISIS. Several medium-range missiles were launched into eastern Syria. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says a large number of terrorists killed and weapons destroyed. This was in response to the terror groups attacking Iran's parliament and shrine earlier this month, killing 17 people. Now upstairs.
Brian, Congressman Steve Scalise is still hospitalized and is now in serious condition, but that's not stopping some on the political left from going on the attack.
It's a delicate thing because, you know, obviously everybody is wishing the congressman well and hoping that he recovers. But Steve Scalise has a history that we've all been forced to sort of ignore on race. He did come to leadership after some controversy over attending a white nationalist event, which he says he didn't know what it was.
So have liberals gone some case too far? Here to debate, we've got former DNC Communications Director Brad Woodhouse and his brother, Executive Director of the North Carolina Republican Party, Dallas Woodhouse. Mr. Woodhouse, good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
All right, Dallas, let's start with you. Have some Democrats gone too far?
Of course they have. Of course, that was the infamous Reverend Barber conducting that interview from this very studio in this very chair with Joy Reid over the weekend, and that is sort of a despicable line of attack. But I don't want to sit here and make it that all Democrats have this problem. All Republicans are good about it. Both sides have issues with it. I don't want to exacerbate the problem. The people that are responsible for either saying things that are unconscionable or in conducting an illegal behavior are them and themselves alone, not a larger group. And it's incumbent on all of us to try to at times attack the sin, in other words, the policy we disagree with, and not the policy makers.
Okay. Brad, what do you think?
Well, look, I think that the judge here is not what some liberal commentators say. It's what his Steve Scalise's colleagues done, and Democrats in the House to a person have rallied around Congressman Scalise. They've rallied around the other people that were injured. They have praised and rallied around
my brother.
They have praised and rallied around the Capitol Police. So the Democrats in the United States House of Representatives have not tried to politicize this. It was the Republicans in the House of Representatives, in particular Congressman Chris Collins, who came out while Steve Scalise was still in surgery and blamed the Democrats for the shooting based on political rhetoric. I thought that was an abomination, but that has not been repeated by the Democrats. He shouldn't have said that.
As the Democrats did with Sarah Palin on the shooting of Gabby Giffords.
It is not true what he said. If you want to talk about where political rhetoric has gone in this country, look no further than 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You have a president who's being sued right now. He's being sued in federal court for inciting violence at his campaign rally.
Well, I tell you what, Brad, and Dallas, hold on just a second. Actually, I think it was the day after the shooting that Nancy Pelosi talked about. She took a shot at the president of the. She slammed the president of the United States. Let me say it that way. Blamed him for the rhetoric problems in some cases, and then started talking about sanctimonious Republicans. Dallas, go ahead.
Steve, I actually have an answer to this that is much broader, and that is that our system of American government, politics is never supposed to be as important as it has been made out to be. We are helping fuel some extremism by people because the government gets involved in everything. If the government stuck to its core functions, protecting us against enemies, foreign and domestic, didn't try to tell farmers that a puddle on their land is a navigable stream, didn't try to tell people what health care they're in, didn't get into all kind of economic incentives and development. This is a place where the Republicans are at least right in principle but wrong in practice, and the Democrats are always wrong, is that we grow government to a size that all over people feel aggrieved by it. Government is too big, and our political system is not supposed to matter this much. The things that are supposed to matter are our civic groups, our families, our barbecues at home, and people figuring out their own way in life. And that is a way to tone all this down, is that government shouldn't matter this much.
What you just heard, Steve, is Dallas's justification for someone bringing guns and shooting at members of Congress.
I am in no way justifying it.
And say,
I am in
Dallas, hold on. You cannot sit here and say that because President Obama passed a health care law that brought health care to 25 additional million Americans, that people are angry and they go shoot a congressman, and that's okay. I don't know how you could sit there and justify that.
I in no way said that.
You just
I
said
in no
that
way said that, Brad, and you know better than that. All I am saying is that when far off, distant people get involved in every aspect of people's lives, you are going to help encourage the unhinged. One way to do that is just not make politics so important. Wouldn't it be great if Fox and Friends didn't have to talk about so much politics, even though they do it really, really well, and they talk more about sports and our civic culture and the great things that go on in people's lives and communities done by the private sector, and let the private sector worry about health care? Too much going on.
Brad and Dallas, I think you both said your opinion on this Monday morning. We thank you very much for getting up early. You disagreed. We knew that was coming. All right, guys, have a good day. Thank you. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, coming up, some presidents get monuments, some presidents get airports. So what national landmark is President Obama perhaps going to get? Could be a building in Madison, Wisconsin, with his name on it. Meanwhile, the Navy is at a training standstill. Pilots refusing to fly over safety concerns with a certain jet. Leah Gabriel, a former Navy pilot, got an exclusive look inside the training simulator. She's here with the results of a safety review coming up next.
Wow. Back with the Fox News Alert now. Brand new horrifying video showing the suspect accused of mowing down worshipers outside a mosque, blowing a kiss
to the hecklers outside of that police vehicle. Police say the 48-year-old man killed one person and injured 10 others.
Benjamin Hall is live in London, where it is 11:34 in the morning, and authorities are combing through the scene. Benjamin?
Yeah, that's right. And it's going to be investigated by the counter-terrorism police. It happened just after midnight as worshippers were leaving a Muslim centre here in Finchley, and at a time when the neighbourhood would have been crowded with Muslims leaving prayer. It seems the attacker knew when the prayers would end, and he was there waiting for them. Muslim leaders have called it a hate crime, and they've asked the public here to stay calm. But of course, we're hearing horrible stories about what happened that night, and bodies strewn all over the place. Police have arrested the driver. He's a 48-year-old white man. We hear that when he was pulled down, he was shouting, I want to kill Muslims.
Was a terrorist, tell him.
Of course he's a terrorist attack.
He's a terrorist, yeah?
He's a terrorist attack.
He wasn't ill, no?
No, he was not ill.
And he was not drunk. He was a white terrorist.
He was on the floor about 5 minutes. People was holding him. If someone is drunk, you cannot hold him for 5 minutes on the floor. Attack.
So people really trying to just reduce tensions here in North London as they try to find out more about this 48-year-old man who carried this out. But it is another attack in the middle of London here today. Back to you guys.
All right, Benjamin Hall, live in London. Thank you very much.
And a lot of you saw coverage all night that happened, took place, and you thought to yourself, well, you know what? Here we go again.
Right.
And something else in London. Can this actually be happening? 3 London major incidents in London, and of course Manchester.
Yeah,
the country obviously feels terrorized.
What a problem. All right, 24 minutes before the top of the hour, Jillian joins us with some other news.
That's right. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's get you caught up on a story that we've been following. The number of people hurt when a deck collapsed at a Christian camp, now up to more than 50 people. 2 of them are in critical condition. A frightening incident happening during a memorial service at the Glacier Camp over the weekend in Montana. A witness saying the deck felt, quote, spongy on one side just before collapsing. Police are investigating. A gunman opening fire on a crowd of people in Myrtle Beach, and the entire ordeal streamed live on Facebook. Oh! A fight breaking out, one of the people involved pulling out a gun, firing several shots. The gunman then stealing a car. A security officer shooting him, but he still gets away. Police tracking him down hours later. 7 people hurt, but not seriously. Well, some presidents get libraries, others get airports, but President Obama could get a county building in Wisconsin. Madison City leaders saying it would be a tribute to the former president. The Dane County executive calling Obama, quote, the JFK of our generation. A county official says the Soviet-style complex would be the first seat of government building named after the 44th president. So look at your headlines on this Monday.
There you go. All right, thanks,
Thank
Jillian.
you.
Very rectangle. Right.
Very cement and gray.
Yes. Yes.
All right, well, today the Air Force will decide whether F-35s at Arizona's Luke Air Force Base will return to the sky after pilots reported oxygen deprivation over the past 5 weeks.
This, as Navy training is still at a standstill. Back in April, pilots were refusing to fly due to safety concerns, pushing the Navy to order a full review. We told you about that.
All right, Fox News correspondent, former Navy pilot Leah Gabriel joins us right now with an exclusive look inside the training cockpit and the first results from that review. Leah.
Well, Brian, Ainsley, and Steve, the bottom line is the Navy is doing a lot to try to mitigate the risk, but the report says that there is no solution to the problem. In fact, page 3 of the executive summary says finding one has, quote, proved elusive. Now, the issue is with systems that are supposed to provide clean, breathable air with enough oxygen in both the T-45 Trainer and the F-18 Hornet. Take a look.
I visited Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia Beach for an exclusive look at the latest technology being used to train F-18 pilots to handle aircraft system failures that have been plaguing the fleet.
Looks like we got the feel off the nose there.
The reduced oxygen breathing device allows pilots to experience oxygen loss while flying, but in the safety of a simulator. As a former F-18 pilot, I gave it a try.
We can put this oxygen mask on and slowly decrease that amount of oxygen concentration that we're getting to simulate as best we can exactly what the pilot would experience in the airplane itself.
All set. Thumbs up.
All right. Pilots could become dizzy, euphoric, or even pass out.
So far, it's been very successful in helping people recognize those symptoms before they experience any kind of cognitive or, worse yet, loss of consciousness.
Your heart rate's coming up a little bit. You might notice that yourself.
One training goal? To recognize the symptoms and pull a green ring, which gives the pilot up to 10 minutes of emergency oxygen.
One of the reasons for all this training in the simulator is because pilots are reporting more problems in planes like these. And when you're flying in the air in an F-18, it can be a matter of life and death.
In fact, we learned some pilots are more concerned about their life support systems failing than the risks of combat. The pilots we spoke with in Virginia disagree.
I see no problems operating safely under our current mitigation strategy that we're doing right now.
The Navy review released just today says it views these episodes as a #1 safety priority and announced an unconstrained resource approach to finding a solution. I spoke with Admiral Bill Moran, who ordered the review.
The system, the aircraft, ought to operate the way it was designed to operate. And it's up to us to figure out how to get that airplane back to that level of performance.
Now, as you saw in the case of a system failure, pilots have to actually manually activate emergency oxygen, that green ring I mentioned, even if they're impaired while they're flying. Admiral Moran says that an automatic system is the goal, but he also tells me that if they won't be able to get the T-45 training flights going again by the end of the summer, it will impact operational readiness. And Ainsley, Brian, and Steve, he says that he thinks the Navy is close, but this is a very complex problem, and it's going to take a complex solution, and it's going to take some time.
Yeah, it may be a complex problem, but it's pretty simple. The pilots need clean air to breathe.
They do. And what makes it so complex is that you have different situations with different airplanes, and you need a system that can create that air while they're flying so that they don't have to basically lug it around in the form of liquid oxygen, a big tank in their airplane.
And the F-18 was used to shoot down that Syrian government jet, so we need these planes.
That's right. And the idea is when you have emergency oxygen, you pull a green ring, it gives you 10 minutes about of breathable air, and you're supposed to descend below 10,000 feet. If you're over Syria, you can't just descend over 10,000, below 10,000 feet and fly for 10 minutes.
No.
You need a better solution than that, and that's what the Navy says they're working on right now. So.
All right, Leah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, 18 minutes now before the top of the hour. Straight ahead. After a string of violent protests and last Wednesday's political assassination attempt, even extremist experts are worried that the radical left is a danger to the American public. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer says it's only going to get worse.
Plus, this woman thought that she was picking up her dog's toy, but she was in for a big surprise when it started moving. So did she.
That's no squeak toy.
He was doing hurdles.